Hello and welcome to this episode of Crate Conversations. I'm excited to be here today with Tara Paxton. She is our township planner, and we have lots to talk about, but really we're going to hone in today on our pollinator garden that we put together this spring. And I'm excited for you to talk about it and also about other things that we have going on over at the farm. So thanks for coming today and joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
I love to talk about this because it became sort of like a passion project for my staff and I. One of our staff members, Vinnie Palmieri, is secretary to the Environmental Commission, and they wanted to apply for a grant to build a pollinator garden. Mm-hmm. And they applied for it. They got a $2,000 grant, and it helped fund the fencing, all the soil, all the plant materials, and deer fencing so that we don't lose the plants to the deer that live over there. And it's located at the Havens Homestead or the Bob Anstett Cultural Arts Center on Herbertsville Road. And it is a complement to the community garden that my predecessor, Michael Fowler, created. It's, I think, going to be 6-7 years ago that it's been there. And that garden is for residents to rent garden plots. You know, residents who might not have access to sunlight or, soil that's fertile enough to grow vegetables and plants and fruits and things like that. So it's this little oasis.
It's our little patch of heaven here in Brick Township.
I really go there like to have lunch some days, and weed. But it's a beautiful place. What we did was we researched with help from people from the Environmental Commission, like Joanne Lambusta, who's a master gardener, the types of native plants that will do good in our sandy soil, that don't need pesticides, because obviously it's a pollinator garden. We don't want to apply pesticides because we want to invite insect species that others might find as pests, like bees and moths and some butterflies and caterpillars and things like that. We want to invite them there. So we researched it. Ed Peters from my office created this whole beautiful colored plan listing all of the plants. And then we actually, I joke about this, we planned it out so that when we invited the community, you were there, to come plant, we had everything set up. So it took an hour to plant over 200 plants.
Right.
And he created a schematic, which we're going to hopefully put on a display board, an information kiosk at the garden.
Right.
So that people see the species, the different types of plants. And then we had really great success, which what we have back here is all the herbs. We did two herb planters, and I can't believe how well they flourished.
Right.
But it was full-fledged, buzzing all summer long. The bees were amazing. We've been approached by 2 apiarists where they want to bring their beehives.
Right. We had talked about that, having beehives actually there as well. That's pretty cool.
There is a beehive right next to the Havens Homestead. There's a bee box there. So I think that is helping too. But those 2 individuals, we just got to figure out how to map it out so that we don't conflict with the other use of that park, that space.
Sure.
Because there's dogs that come and go and stuff like that, and kids, and we don't want to concentrate so many bees in one area.
Right. So I was there for the planting. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing that. I like to garden myself as well. So that was great. And you had mentioned the community flower beds or the community garden section that's there. So those are raised beds that people can rent, right? Essentially?
Yeah, for $20. So every year, like around February or March, Sharice Moore from my staff sends out a letter to people who had rented in the past. And then we also, through our Facebook and our web postings, put out, advertisement that they're open for rental now.
Okay.
And they're 8-foot by 4-foot beds that the Parks Department constructed. And they used weed control when they constructed it by putting cardboard between the ground and the soil. So
it's healthy, but still.
So it's healthy, but and it also helps with keeping like mold and spores and things down so that can affect plants. And we have a couple of very prolific gardeners who come every day, or seemingly every day, to water their garden and to maintain it. And that garden also, Boy Scout troop built 2 Americans with Disabilities Act raised beds
Oh,
that
good.
are actually 3.5 feet high, so that you don't have to bend over to
That's
weed and
fantastic.
garden. So
Yeah.
those two are also available, and some of our gardeners, now that they're getting a little bit older, have expressed an interest in, maybe I'm going to get that bed next
Right,
year.
yeah.
So it creates a little bit of a community. I pop in every once in a while and I see like a chair and a little table set up, or a bench, or somebody's brought their own watering can, or it's really nice to see that these folks are taking care of
Right.
this property for us.
That's so fantastic that we do that for people. So I'm wondering, how many beds do we have for rent?
We had 13 originally, and we added 5 more when they reconstructed the beds 2 years ago.
Oh, great.
So we have
So
18.
great. So we have 18 potential gardeners, and we have returning gardeners, but if we have any beds left over, we can certainly advertise. I've been out there as well. It's really nice. People plant all different things. Some people do flowers, some people do vegetables, some people do herbs, or a combo of those things. And
Even flowers.
yeah, it's just nice to see all of the beds filled, and there's a watering source, right? So
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about lugging in water or anything.
Right. Sometimes it's interrupted when it's being used somewhere else because it's just from the house. It's from the Cultural Arts Center.
Right.
But our Parks Department, which I can't say enough good things about, really was instrumental, and they're instrumental, continued to keep us, keep the whole garden theme going.
Right.
I am a little persistent, but Rob Burns
They're
and
helpful. They're super helpful.
Rob Burns and his staff, they're always happy to be there and to help us. We did a weeding day in August after all that rain and heat we had. It was like a jungle in the Pollinator Garden, and it took 8 of us 4 hours.
Oh,
but
wow.
we filled a dump truck with all of the weeds.
Oh, my goodness.
And I have to tell you, I had such an amazing time working with the staff. They're really a great bunch of guys.
That's so nice. I love that we all come together, from around town, as far as the Parks Department and everybody to help out. It's really nice. It is a community event, and it's like our little community keeping it going. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You talked about the Pollinator Garden, and I think you mentioned before when we were talking something about extending that somehow throughout the town, not the actual garden, but an idea to bring bees into our town for pollination.
Well, bees are integral to our food supply. We need bees in order to have food, to grow food. So New Jersey actually passed legislation restricting municipalities from making ordinances that allow people to kill beehives and things like that. We can't regulate them.
Right.
They just are what they are. So what I would like to see proposed is something called participation in the Pollinator Pathway. So it's a nonprofit organization which encourages residents to create pollinator-friendly gardens in their yards. And then, they could register that they're a Pollinator Pathway yard, and then they can grow areas of their property to either just grow to wildflower or seed, grasses and things like that, or just have, flowering plants and whatnot, native flowering plants. And then they could register, and then, it'll encourage participation and awareness, really, about the need for pollinators.
Yeah. One of the things I've read, and I do this in the spring, or don't do this in the spring, I should say, is when all the grass starts finally coming in and your dandelions pop up, because I have dandelions, I don't have a really great lawn, to let them go to seed, because that's the bees' first ability to, I guess, whatever bees do, not eat, but pollinate, whatever they do.
To eat and then pollinate,
Yeah. So I always try to let my dandelions just kind of go in the beginning of the year, and I mess with the garden part, and then when they finally go to seed, I'm just like, all right, now it's time to, Yeah, so that's helpful. It's like a simple thing people can do in the beginning of the year,
absolutely. Right? And then choosing native plants is super important too. Like when we were doing the plant list, there are so many gorgeous flowering plants that you don't even think are native, but they are, like zinnias, for instance. They're native.
Zinnias.
And we have like the Joe Pye weed and the lavender and like so many gorgeous flowering bushes and things like that, like blueberry, high bush blueberry. It has beautiful flowers on it. So those types of plants, they're native, they're beautiful in your landscape, and they can provide habitat and food for pollinators. Right,
and so our pollinator garden has all the native plants, and if we have that, I guess at some point we could maybe have up what are the native plants that we should be planting really here in town
Yeah.
that would be helpful for pollination, right?
Vin Palmieri actually drafted a brochure
Oh,
to
that's
talk
great.
about it. So
Love it.
We're finalizing it, and we're probably going to post it on the township's website.
Oh, that
very
would be
soon.
great.
Yeah, and
Super
it'll have-
helpful.
It'll have
Yeah.
pictures of everything that we.
I mean, I
we did
could
over
just
there.
Google native plants of New Jersey,
Yeah.
but it's so much easier when someone else has already done the work for you, and then you just have it.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's pictures of what these plants look like, or
Yeah.
so you have an idea of what you're planting in your garden and
Yeah,
how it'll
and
grow.
you can go to the Pollinator Garden when we put the kiosk up and look at the list and where they are, so you can identify where
Right.
in the garden they are.
So one other cool thing that I know we did at the Pollinator Garden, because I was there for that too, was we had one of our former students from Brick
Yeah.
Township, wanted to help out and make it a more beautiful place for everyone as well. So
Right.
what did we do for that? That
Brody
was a lot of fun.
LaValle, who's just graduated last year from Brick Memorial, is an artist, and Jude Harzer was his teacher. And
We had her on for another great conversation. Go back in time.
and he was in her muralist class, mural class. And so I had this silly idea. I was like, oh, we bought a shed to help the community garden folks and replace and we tried to save it, an old horse barn that was between where the two gardens are right now. And we had to buy the shed. So we bought the shed and installed it. And it looks like a little barn. And it was just a blank canvas for, you've probably seen in cities all over the country where people stand in front of butterflies and they have the latitude and longitude on top. So that's what we did. So he painted New Jersey's butterfly, which is a blue swallowtail, I think. I could be wrong.
It was a lot of blue. That's
Lot
all I
of
remember.
blue.
Different blues, shades of blue.
and it came out great. And we had a painting party too. We had where we invited my staff came. I felt like they did such an incredible job in helping me and my vision and all this stuff. So they had just an hour where they could come and help paint, and it came out gorgeous.
Yeah.
So if you go to the Havens Homestead and head over to the community garden, make sure you take a picture in front of the butterfly and post it on social media so people know that Brick is a beautiful place.
It really is a beautiful place. The whole farm is so beautiful. If you've never been, I highly recommend going. There's the field behind the house, but if you go to the left of behind the house, that's where all the area that we're talking about. You can see the community gardens. You can see our pollinator garden. You can see the shed where we have the mural. That's really nice. Is there anything else you want to share with us about, our community garden or pollination or anything?
Well, there's so much going on. We have plans because we do have a little bit of Green Acres grant money left. So we hope in the future, like I said, to build a kiosk. We have a Boy Scout who's looking to do an Eagle Scout project, so he might build a kiosk. We're repurposing some of the cases that we had here in the hall, in Town Hall.
Oh, perfect.
Wooden cases.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll be able to put in some pathways because it's a little muddy, especially today when I went to go pick the flowers.
Yeah.
And to put some pathways in, and then of course, like I said, make places for those beehives
Right.
to be maintained at the garden too.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
This was fantastic information, and I have to reach back. If you too would like to grow your own herbs or flowers or vegetables, please reach out to us in February or March when we put the info out about our community garden. And we'd love to have all those plots filled this year. And I thank you for joining us today, and thanks you for joining us for this great conversation. This was really good.